Georgia at Tennessee, week 3. We got ourselves a battle in the SEC, friends. What a fun game, man. I am extremely excited for this game. College game day, whether or not you want to argue it's worthy of that selection, it got selected, and it is the game day game, and it's still a big-time game in the SEC. Now, there's absolutely other big games, but so much to watch for in this one, and just a lot to prove for both of these teams. With Tennessee so far, the win against Syracuse was a good proving win to me. I think that Syracuse is still a good team. Now, obviously, it's very much a rebuild year for the Orange, so it was hard to really gauge how good Tennessee is. But Joey Aguilar in both Tennessee's wins thus far has looked a lot better than advertised. I know there was an extreme amount of concern around the turnovers and the interceptions that he threw last year, but I mentioned in a video a while back, I want to say it might have been the Tennessee versus Syracuse prediction and preview video, where I stated, hey, Josh Heupel ran the ball so well last year that this rushing offense was 6th in the nation. So when you can run the ball that effectively, now, of course, Tennessee loses production at quarterback, obviously, and running back. So that was, something we were going to have to watch for coming into this year. But with how effective of an offensive system that Josh Heupel's created, we know it for the veer and shoot, but he still runs the ball so well. And I felt like that would take some pressure off of Joey Aguilar, at least in those first 2 games. Now, how much pressure does that take off of him in this game is my biggest question. To me, this game is going to be won in the trenches if Tennessee wants a chance. And it starts with that offensive line. How much push can they get? How productive can that offensive line be? And can Tennessee effectively run the football? If Joey Aguilar's shoulders are full and Tennessee ends up behind the chains, or they're having to empty the backfield and they're having to really pass and they can't stay in those choice concepts, those screens, supplemented with the run game, that's going to be something to watch for because of the way Josh Heupel's systematically runs this offense. If Tennessee can at least have either even or numbers in the box, I think they can run it well, but it comes down to that offensive line against a very physical defensive front for the Dogs. So I think Joey Aguilar is going to have his hands full. I think that offensive line will have their hands full, but being at home is huge. They're coming in with a lot of momentum. Tennessee looks very good, better than I think people expected them, and I, for one, didn't think they would take that big of a step back. So really interested to see how this offense looks. Defensively, this is a really good unit. A lot of returning production, an experienced defensive coordinator that's been there for 4 or 5 years or so now. So I think the Vols on defense are going to be good. What I'm looking for is they have to force turnovers, and they have to make Gunnar Stockton uncomfortable all night long. Afternoon, I should say, for accuracy there. But look, Tennessee has a very good defense. Last year, they were one of the top 20 defenses in the country in forcing turnovers. They were a top 10 defense all around in the country. So they bring back a lot of production. How well does this defense play? Again, they have not played this kind of size in the trenches. So is that defensive front going to be able to cause disruptions and slow down an unproven Georgia run game? All right, that's really the big things I'm looking for the Vols. Again, it helps that they're at home in Neyland this game. Let's talk about Georgia. All right, let's start with their offense. Mike Bobo is one of my favorite offensive coordinators in the country. I think he's done such a good job there with the quarterbacks he's had, the system he's created. Now, last year, I don't think it fell on Bobo's shoulders as much as even Carson Beck's. I just think the run game wasn't to the standard that Georgia wants it to be. They struggled mightily, consistently, and methodically running the football, whether it was in the trenches. Now, ETN and some of those guys have all the talent in the world, but there wasn't any consistency in the run game. So I think Georgia's going to try to establish that early. They're going to try to be physical. They are going to try to prove that they should win the battle and can win the battle in the trenches against the Vols. Secondly is the receiving room. Look, we know the elephant in the room. The receiving core and the amount of drops they had last year was just brutal. So can the receiving core make plays? But more than anything, what does Georgia look like in the trenches? If they get push and can run the ball well, that does the same in turn for Gunnar Stockton, takes a lot of pressure, and it quiets that crowd. It allows that offense to run some play action, run some bootlegs, maybe create some big splash plays deep, because Tennessee's having to load the box just to be as physical enough to stop the run with the Dogs. Georgia defensively, look, it's Kirby Smart's team. They're going to be flying around the ball. My biggest thing to watch for is that secondary. Tennessee loves to run a lot of choice routes. All right, a lot of RPOs, a lot of choice routes, a lot of screens. It's going to take discipline. Now, Kirby Smart is a mastermind defensively, so how well does he position his guys, but how prepared are they? Knowing that Joey Aguilar can utilize his legs as well, there's a lot of options. There's going to be 2, 3, 4 different options in a play that Aguilar is going to have to decipher. So Georgia's defense is going to have to play a little bit on their toes, a little bit on their heels, be ready for anything and everything coming from Josh Heupel and his wild schematic offense there. So let's get to the prediction here. I just fun little note here. Georgia's won 8 in a row. So think about this. The last time that Tennessee beat the Dogs was actually the Hail Mary in 2016. Was that Josh Dobbs? And oh man, it's going to kill me. I can't remember who caught it. But Josh Dobbs, Alvin Kamara, that team with Butch Jones, incredible win. What felt like an incredible, magical season for the Vols. That's the last time they beat Georgia. The fun ended there in this matchup. So at home, I really like this Georgia team, but I feel like with the way they played against Marshall, it's hard to really measure them. The way they played against Austin Peay, I know it was a weird, they moved the start time up and there was the weather delay, and a 28-6 win against Austin Peay is nothing really to write home about, and not quite the standard that Georgia plays at. Maybe they let loose, maybe they held off a little bit. I'm not entirely sure, but I say all that to tell you, look, I'm taking the Vols. Georgia's favored -4.5, but something in me feels like the atmosphere with College game day, Neyland's going to be rocking. Josh Heupel's going to have these guys ready to play. I think if there was ever a year that there was a chance to catch Georgia, it's going to be this season. It maybe felt like last year, but Georgia's backs were against the wall. They had already had 2 losses by the time they played Tennessee later in the season this year. So I think what benefits the Vols not only being at home is this game's a little bit earlier in the season than what we're used to seeing these two teams play at. So I'm taking, if you want to call it an upset, I got the Vols. I think Tennessee wins this game. Of course, they would cover the -4.5 if you want to be on the safer side. That's what I'm betting on. Again, I'm no expert or no reporter or beat writer by any chance, so I'm just someone that loves college football, and I think Tennessee has a good chance to win this one. So I'm taking the Vols. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.